Good morning, Maryville. You are listening to KZLX LP Maryville, and it is currently 9 o'clock, so it is time for the first quarter with Gage Kaler, Michael Bosch, and Cade Ricketts. Hope everybody had a good weekend. I'd imagine if you are a Kansas, Mizzou, or Chiefs fan, you guys had a good weekend.
Yeah, pretty stellar. Couldn't have asked for a better one, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Stressed out a little bit, but we made it through.
We'll talk about that big game later. Kind of want to lead off with it's a big week in college basketball. So we had the SEC and Big 12 rivalry this weekend. A couple games I want to highlight real quick or want to talk about. So we had the West Virginia and Auburn game. That was a tight one, 80-77. Auburn went down there. And they were number 15 in the nation. They fall to 16-5 on the season. West Virginia looked like one of the worst teams in college basketball, or not in college basketball, but the Big 12. But Eric Stevenson for them dropped 31 points on 10-17 shooting. Do you guys think Auburn's legit, or do you think that was just a fall game or something?
I mean, Auburn's 16-5. I do think they're a good team. I mean, everyone has bad games. Also, I don't think West Virginia's horrible. I think they're finally putting things together. Once you get to conference play, sometimes that happens. You know, sometimes the team doesn't mold instantly right off the bat like you'd want them to. So I think they're developing. They're becoming a better team. But Auburn's definitely, they dropped 2 in a row. They lost to A&M on the 25th of December. It was a good game.
A&M's another one of those teams that's back and forth too. I think they have 7 losses on the season. But, yeah they're another one of those weak losses for Auburn, so that's not really what you're wanting to see when it comes to the conference play.
I would say, though, almost the same thing I feel about West Virginia, I feel about A&M. I do feel like A&M's kind of putting it together. I mean, they're sitting there at 15-6. I mean, that's not bad for A&M, although, Auburn probably should have won that one as well.
Yeah, there was actually quite a few upsets in this rivalry this week. You had Mizzou beating Iowa State, which I was happy about.
I think that's one of those games when you look at it that, Iowa State's number 12 in the country. Missouri's not ranked, but Missouri's a good team. And, I mean, when you're shooting your threes like they were shooting their threes, you don't lose a lot of games like that. They actually went, let's see here. Yeah, I mean, 14 for 30, almost 50% from 3. I mean, that's a pretty stellar game. It's hard to keep up with that kind of production from the three-point line.
And we were talking earlier, and I think you brought up the stat that Kobe Brown had 12 of Mizzou's 25 boards.
Yep.
That is wild to have almost half your team's rebounds on the day.
And he's a guard, so yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, are you guys both Mizzou fans?
Yeah.
Well, when I was watching, it kind of reminded me of, I'm an Iowa fan, in the previous years of Iowa where it seemed like you guys almost lived and died by the 3, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they can make a run pretty far if that is their play style?
I don't think we're as consistent as we need to be from 3. I think we've been hot the last 2 games from 3, and you love to see that, and you got to hope you can stay hot just going forward. But you want to go back to the couple games before the last 2. I mean, we were not hot at all from the 3, and we were missing a lot of threes. I mean, it's kind of a scary thing when you live and die by the 3, but that kind of seems like where we've kind of fallen into right now.
Yeah, I think you can almost beat any team when they're on. But
exactly.
They can lose to any team when they're not playing well. So
exactly.
That's the problem.
Yeah, you look at some of our past losses, a few of our big losses, Bama and Kansas, that is. They are very defensive-centric teams, and if we are not on, we're not scoring 70. Our defense can't hold back good enough because we're just not defensive focused. So it could be a tough run.
Yeah. I think Alabama's a pretty darn good team. We also got to remember when Missouri played Alabama, they didn't have Kobe Brown.
Correct. Speaking of Alabama, they got absolutely throttled by Oklahoma, which Oklahoma was either last or second to last in the Big 12. That being said, I personally think that the Big 12 is the best conference in basketball, but Oklahoma has 9 losses on the season, and Alabama, in my opinion, was looking like the best team in college basketball.
Yeah, Alabama is off to an amazing start, 18-3. They have arguably maybe the best player in the country in Brandon Miller. And I think when you look at that game, one of the reasons I think they struggled is Brandon Miller had a bad game. I mean, it happens. You can't be on every night, only shooting 4 for 14 for 11 points. And then you flip over to the Oklahoma side, and you had
Oklahoma played nearly a perfect game.
I mean, yeah, you really can't play much better than that, especially from Grant Sheffield. His game, stellar, 30 points. I mean, a 30-point game in college basketball is super impressive.
I mean, I didn't watch this game, but I'm looking at the 3-point percent, and that's what the difference is. Alabama shot 27.3, and then OU almost shot 70% from three. I mean,
yeah, incredible
anything like
performance.
that, you're gonna lose.
And you said Grant Sherfield had a good game. Jalen Hill himself had 26 on only 11 shots, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
6 or 7 on free throws, just a dominant game by Oklahoma. When I saw that score, I was shocked to see that. Another one I want to highlight is number 17 Baylor escaping against Arkansas, 67-64. I believe Arkansas led most of that game until Baylor took their first lead with about 4 minutes left. And Keontae George had 24 on 8 of 20 shooting, 2 of 5 from deep, and Arkansas just couldn't hold on. Just kind of disappointing, but I kind of wanted to see a big upset.
Yeah, I think Arkansas's definitely having a rough year compared to last year. Last year they were one of the best teams in the SEC. This year they seem like they lose a lot of close games towards the end of the game.
And they looked good at the beginning of the year, too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, their last 2 losses were to Baylor and Missouri before that. In each of those games, they lost by 3 points. So they're there at the end. They just got to finish it. I wouldn't be surprised if they can go on a good winning streak here down the stretch and somehow sneak into the tournament. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
And did you guys watch the Kansas-Kentucky game, either of you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I watched it, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably. I mean, it wasn't as close. Like, it was a lot closer than it looked. I think Kansas kind of pulled away.
I agree.
At the end, but
yeah, it was
yeah.
one of those games. I definitely feel like Kansas was in the front seat most of the game.
Yeah. And Kentucky tried to make it. I think they got it within 3 or 2.
Yeah, no, there was definitely some points where you're like, wow, hold on here. You know what I mean?
This game isn't over.
It was kind of like Kansas. You feel like they were in the driver's seat most of the game, but Kentucky just wouldn't go away. They just kept hitting enough shots to keep it close throughout the game.
And Jalen Wilson is incredible for Kansas. The forward had 22 points on 50% from the field, 8 boards, and his past few games, 22 against Kentucky, 23 against Baylor, 30 against TCU, 38 against Kansas State. Do you guys think he's in running for Naismith Player of the Year?
I mean, when you're putting up those kind of numbers, you almost have to be at least in the conversation, especially when you're playing at a team like Kansas when you're going to get recognized. You're on a top team. You're having great games. You're playing good teams. I mean, you can't ask for really more than that.
Yeah. And Kentucky is now 14-7, which is odd for them.
Yeah, it's definitely very surprising.
It looked like they were getting back on track there a little bit. I think they were receiving some votes last week or a week before that because they had a big win against Tennessee.
Yep.
And then they had not the most impressive stretch of games against Georgia, A&M, and Vanderbilt, but
Yeah.
They won them. That's what matters in college basketball. And then they lose to Kansas, so I don't know where they really stand with the rest of the pack, but we'll see down the stretch, I guess.
I mean, and just from a overview standpoint of this whole SEC Big 12 thing, the Big 12 kind of kicked the SEC's butt this go around, winning. There's 10 games, they won 7 of them, so the Big 12 definitely gets the we're better than you at basketball title this year. That's for sure.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I don't really understand how the Big 12 got this good unless I'm not a huge college basketball watcher, so I don't know if the Big 12 has always ran the SEC or what.
I think they've won it at least the last 2 years. But
I mean, I know Baylor's been pretty good.
It's usually more competitive than this. I feel like it's usually more of a
50-50 split.
Exactly. And I think you had some surprising games like we talked about. Alabama, a lot of people expected them to take care of business against Oklahoma.
TCU lost.
And then a lot of people thought Auburn would have beat West Virginia, and then that would have put us at 5-5.
Yeah, I mean, and then Tennessee actually won their game. Tennessee-Texas was the biggest toss-up there. That was a matchup between 4 and 10.
I felt the same way about that as you probably felt about the Kansas game, where it kind of closer than it looked. I feel like Tennessee just looked like they were the better team the entire game.
Yeah. let's talk about that game a little bit. Serge Bari Rice for Texas is also ridiculously good, but he had 21 points. Wasn't enough to pull through because he was outperformed by Oliver Camwa. Is that how you pronounce that? Not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But he had 27 points on 12 of 15 from the field, and whenever you're shooting that efficient, it's kind of impossible to win games like that. Like Tennessee shot 55% from the field and didn't shoot the greatest from deep, but when you're shooting 55, almost 56% from the field, it's hard to lose that game. So let's move on here a little bit, talk a little bit about the upcoming All-Star game for the NBA and who may or may not make it, as we did have the starters announced. We have, for the starters for the East, is Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Kyrie Irving, also Giannis and Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was named the captain. And for the West, we had Stephen Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Zion, and Nikola Jokic. So let's start off real quick. Who do you guys think shouldn't be a starter, or do you guys think they got it right?
Let me look. I honestly think all of them could have been a starter, but I could see where you can make an argument for like Embiid to be in there. But I think all 10 of them that are starters are, respectable to be in there. And I'm actually looking because we were talking about the, how they get there. So it's 50% fans, 25 NBA players, and 25 media.
I didn't know the fans had that much influence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, yeah. No, I think they got it good, though.
So my only complaint would be Zion is a little bit of a hot take, but personally I thought Domantas Sabonis should have been a starter over Zion, just because that Kings team isn't nearly as talented as that Pels team. That being said, the Pelicans have been playing without Brandon Ingram, and I think they missed a lot of time with C.J. McCollum. But Sabonis has just looked amazing for the Kings. He's averaging 18.5, 12.3, and 7.3, so almost Jokic-like numbers. I don't want to compare him to Jokic because Jokic is just Jokic, but what he's doing with that team is, I think, more important and valuable to the Kings than what Zion is doing for New Orleans right now.
Yeah, I don't think that gets talked about enough is because the Kings, over the past however many years, have been the worst team, and they got Kevin Huerter in the offseason. They got some other
Malik Monk,
but
yeah.
Domantas Sabonis has just when I watch their games, he just runs everything. Everything's through him, and he's the reason why they're like third in the West right now. So I'm not opposed to him going over Zion, but Zion is like super efficient, like scoring this year.
Yeah,
I think he's averaging almost like 27 points. So
yeah, it was a toss up for me, but I just don't think Domantas Sabonis got the respect that he deserved from the fans. I'm sure the NBA and the media, or the coaches in the media, gave him what he deserved. But yeah, who would you have put in, or who would you have replaced with Embiid? Because you said Embiid probably got snubbed.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying what the people have been saying about him. They've been saying he's been getting snubbed, but I don't know. That's too hard. That's too political.
I'll say I don't think you can take any of those three guys out, the KD, JT, or who's the other one, the other front court player, Giannis, and replace him with Embiid, because I mean, they've all just outperformed him this year.
Yeah. I'm looking at the West guards, too, so Steph and Luka. I think you maybe could have put Ja or Shea in there.
Okay. I think I would put, this year I'd probably put Shea over Ja.
Mm-hmm.
But then I would say it would have to be Steph that got replaced, because I think he's missed time with some injuries this year.
Well, the Warriors haven't been up to their standard
Yeah.
of play, but it's the Warriors always get like the number one fan vote, so that fan rank, he had the number one fan rank, so he got in there pretty easily. But I'm looking at the East. Forgot about Jalen. You could say Jalen Brown and James Harden.
I think
Maybe.
Jalen Brown was close to getting a
he
starting
was
position.
He was right behind Donovan Mitchell. But
Okay.
I don't know. It's been hard because everyone's been playing really good this year.
I think there's 7 players with averaging 30 points this season, I believe.
Mm. Oh, and I'm looking at the Embiid situation. So Embiid would have made it in, but Jason Tatum received the most media votes, so that put him in.
Surpassed him.
He got more media votes than Giannis, Durant, Embiid, anybody.
Well, I think the media got it right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some on-the-brink players that may or may not make it. First one I want to talk about is Pascal Siakam for the Raptors. Do you think he gets in?
How many reserves go in? For
I believe it's 7.
7. I'm looking at the list, and so for the front court, you have Paulo Banchero, who's an amazing rookie this year, but I don't think he should go over Siakam. Siakam's definitely behind Jimmy Butler and Embiid, though, but I would say he makes it like the last of the front court reserves.
Okay. Okay, do you have any talk on that? On Siakam?
No, I really don't got nothing about Siakam.
Bam Adebayo?
Oh, Bam! I didn't even see Bam. I have like the.
Oh, you just have the fan vote?
No, it's the voting results of everything weighted in, and like
Okay.
where the standing is, and Bam Adebayo is really low on there, but Bam got 11th in fan vote. But
I
fifth in everything
believe,
else.
I think the reserves all comes down to coaching vote. I think they just get together in a committee and decide who comes
So
in.
what would it be? 4 front court and 3 guards.
I think it's all wild cards. I think they
Oh, it could be
I think they
whatever.
just put in whoever they want.
Oh, so if it's 7 reserves, for me personally, I would say Embiid, Jalen Brown, James Harden, Jimmy Butler, Siakam, and Bam. And then if I need one more, I would probably say Trae Young or Tyrese Halliburton
Okay.
for the East. But
I think Tyrese makes it for
Yeah.
sure. And I just don't see Trae Young making it this year. He's not very efficient. I think the Hawks are underperforming in a way. I don't really know what people expected out of them this year. I expected them to be better than they were, but I just think Trae Young hasn't lived up to his standards. Jalen Brunson's an interesting one to me. I'm also a Knicks fan, so it might be a little biased, but he's averaging like 23 points a game around there, and he does a lot more for the Knicks than what the numbers show. It's kind of like a Sabonis situation. Efficient from the field, sharpshooter. Well, actually, he hasn't really shot too well from deep, but he hits big shots and
Yeah.
puts us back in games.
Only shooting 40% from the 3-point line, but 46 from the field's not.
I'll take those numbers. I'll take
They're
40.
definitely not bad, no.
Yeah. Anthony Davis is kind of an interesting one, too. He's only played 26 games, but when he's played, he looks like the second best power forward in the league behind Giannis, and that is it. Do you think he sneaks in there?
I'm not going to give it to him. Anthony Davis, I mean, he's one of the best. I think he's top 5 player when he's like fully healthy, but that's, when he's healthy. I think you have to give it to Lauri Markkanen and Sabonis this year, because Markkanen, everyone thought the Jazz were, washed. Like, they got rid of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and Lauri Markkanen comes in and he's dropping 30 points a game. Like, I don't know what place they're in. I'll look, but
They're 500. I know that. So they're probably like.
probably like
let me
an
check real
8th
quick.
seed.
They are currently the 10th seed, so they'd be that last play-in team right now. But yeah, the Utah Jazz are definitely overperforming.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody expected them to be 500 at this point in the season. And that's kind of the same way with Indiana and Tyrese Halliburton, which is why I think he's almost a guaranteed reserve for the All-Star game. Another interesting one is Devin Booker. Suns are underperforming. He hasn't played. I think he's only played in 26, 27 games, just like Anthony Davis. Does he sneak in?
No, I think you got to get the same kind of
The same reasoning?
the same treatment to you don't play enough games. I don't think you should be able to get put in there when everyone's been playing really well.
It's kind of like the same thing you said about Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Top 5 guard in the league when he plays, probably, and just but doesn't matter if you don't play.
There's too many good guards above him who are playing with Fox, Lillard, Shea, and Ja. I just don't think Booker will make it.
I think it's interesting what they're doing with the All-Star game this year and the fact that they are drafting right before the game.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
I don't understand how that's going to work. Like, they just going to – is that just going to be like a secret draft? Are they doing it live in front of the crowd?
I hope they do it live. I think that's always entertaining to
Well, I
watch.
thought what would have been cool would be like everyone lines up kind of like
Like your
Like a high school
like
elementary
dodgeball game
like
in
the
high school.
playground, everyone lines up, and then they're just picking right there, and that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, right there in the court. I think that'd be fun. It'd also would create maybe some awkward situations when you're at the All-Star game,
'cause
but
when
you're the
they're on
last guy
live-
picked.
When they're on live TV, they kind of go who they want, like they go with their teammates, and I think this will actually spice it up a lot more.
Yeah, I think it'd be more interesting if they kept the draft secret or something, and
they just run on the
they
court
just
and
run out onto the court, just one player at a time. Not nobody's expecting.
No one knows who they're playing for.
They
exactly.
might do that. They might not show like who gets drafted, and then they just kind of go out there.
I do wish. I liked watching it live. I think that was fun. Funny when you had LeBron and KD doing the draft on
slandering
James Harden. That was pretty funny. That made a lot of meme-worthy moments. That's why I wish Giannis would have won captain for them, because I think Giannis would have been hilarious in that kind of situation.
Oh wait, Giannis did win captain. I misspoke earlier.
Okay,
Giannis won
that's
captain.
what I thought, but I was like, I knew it was a close race.
It was like I'm pretty sure it was down to the wire on that.
It was a couple 100,000, like it was
it's
like 3.8 to 3.9 million votes or something like that.
And I would say I'm surprised LeBron won Western captain, but it's LeBron.
No.
He's gonna get the fan votes. He's gonna get the media votes.
Yeah.
He's gonna get the coaches' votes.
Not surprised in the lightest, actually.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on here. Let's talk about the big news this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Coming up for the Super Bowl, we had one great game and one not so.
Could have been a great game.
Yeah.
I think I would have loved to see
What a
it.
shame.
Yeah, I mean, you just hate to see that for the Niners. I mean, I don't think I've seen a team in a long time that has been as quarterback-ridden as they have. I mean,
It was my heart broke whenever he got hit and he went down. I was like, there's no way. And my roommate, who's a huge Iowa State fan, was just like, of course it had to happen to Brock Purdy.
Hey, someone goes, if I told you Brock Purdy would have not thrown one incomplete pass and they would have lost by the amount they lost by, would you believe me? You know what I mean? It was one of those. He went 4 for 4 for 23. He was looking sharp early on, doing his thing, just dumping it off here and there, making the easy completions, finding the open guy, taking what they give you, just kind of his brand of ball he's been playing recently, which has been super efficient for the Niners. You hate to see him go down, but then you bring in a veteran,
Josh Johnson.
like Josh Johnson. And I mean, when he went in, you kind of thought, well, okay, this definitely might be game, but at least he gives them
a shot.
I mean, you still have something. He's an NFL caliber quarterback. He's got a chance to go win this thing.
Yeah.
He's a veteran. He's been around for a little while. Actually, a long while, really, when you think about it. But not even a little while.
He's played on every team imaginable, pretty much.
It's like he's played everywhere.
Yeah, it'd be easier for me to tell you where he hasn't played than where he has played.
And you got to feel for the guy because, I mean, he finally gets his chance and he goes down, hits his head on the ground. And
yeah, and it was one of those ones that's, I mean, you got to give credit to the NFL for, I've really noticed it a lot more this year with the upstairs review, people looking back at past plays to kind of see players that could possibly got hit hard or maybe they're just shaking it off. He hit his head pretty hard on the ground. Somebody upstairs realized it. They're like, hey, let's check this guy out. And he did end up having a concussion, so.
Yeah, I honestly love that new rule change. I think it's really big step forward for the league.
Great for safety, yeah.
But Philadelphia just looked unstoppable too. Even if Brock Purdy plays, I don't know if they win that game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've got two things to say. First thing I'm going to talk about is with the 49ers. I get that, Brock Purdy goes down, Josh Johnson goes down, and then, you don't really have anybody. But I'm trying to look how many times. They threw the ball 18 times, and I was watching that game. I mean, you're down. They were down like 20 points.
It almost looked like they gave up.
Well, I think
I just had a problem with the coaching. I was like, this is the NFC Championship game, and you're just running the ball.
Okay.
Like, you got to, like, at least try to throw.
all I have to say is when John Johnson went down and Brock Purdy came back in, Brock Purdy couldn't throw the ball. They were limited to what they had.
No, I know, but I feel like them putting him in was kind of like a surrendering in a way where they just kind of gave up. And
I mean, I don't think they didn't have another active quarterback on the roster. You would have been handing it to maybe Christian McCaffrey to try to go play quarterback.
I would have rather had
check
McCaffrey throwing the ball than them just running the ball
Yeah.
3 downs every time, giving up.
I get that, but I feel like once Johnson went down and Purdy had to come back in the game, I think they were surrendering because I think they didn't. I mean, unless they could just break off a bunch of runs, they were. You saw Christian McCaffrey's one pass attempt. Did anyone see that one?
Yeah, and just went to no man's
went
land.
to no man's land. I mean, just because Christian McCaffrey is an amazing running back, probably one of the best in the NFL, doesn't mean he's going to be out there.
Did they ever run any like wildcat with like Debo and him in the backfield though?
Mm-hmm.
No, they did a couple of misdirections, kind of just speed option type plays. Also some end arounds with Debo. I think Debo had like 2 carries. They did one to George Kittle on like an end around. Just trying to mix it up a little bit in the backfield. But, I mean, the Eagles just pretty much started run committing. They knew they weren't going to throw it. It kind of just became this getting blown up at the line of scrimmage. They had 8 guys in the box, bringing everyone down. It was hard to watch.
That's why I had a problem with this, because they're stopping the run on the line of scrimmage every time because they know it's coming, and they just weren't even trying to pass at a point. It was just annoying to watch.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with Michael on this one. I feel like you had at least attempt to. I mean, well. I was going to bring up the Kendall Hinton thing that happened a few years ago with the Denver Broncos, but they only threw the ball twice or 3 or 4 times, whatever it was, and he had 2 picks. But, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's surprising. It's actually hard to be a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, people think it's easy. Maybe Brock Purdy was onto something there.
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy definitely should get a lot of credit. And, I mean, you just feel for the guy. You saw him in the press conference. He was devastated, but Fred Warner picked him up, told him, they wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for him. So you hate to see it. You hate to see a team season end like that, especially when the game could have been a close competitive game.
I honestly really don't even think the Niners defense played that bad.
No, I think it was
penalties is what it was for me.
Definitely, but it was also a little bit, I feel like, on the Niners had no offense, and when you have no offense as a defense,
you give up a lot of points.
Yeah, it just seems like they just knew they just didn't. And then I think some situational stuff. They kind of got. I think the Eagles got some good field position there a couple of times based off just the offense not being able to move the ball. You're punting it. They're returning the punt. They're starting at the 50-yard line. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
When you start that close to the end zone, it makes your job a whole lot easier for an offense, especially when you have that kind of momentum, knowing you just got to go out there and do your job, and you're probably going to go to the Super Bowl.
I mean, you kind of saw the Niners players lose hope. They were starting fights. Trent Williams threw that one guy.
Yeah.
It was just
classic Trent Williams.
Yeah.
It was hard to watch just because you knew what the Niners were going through, and they couldn't really do anything.
I mean, I think Philadelphia was the better team going into this. Like I said last week, I think Philadelphia was going to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I didn't think it was going to happen like that. And Jalen Hurts, I mean, yeah, the Eagles won, but I mean, 121 passing yards.
He didn't look sharp. He really didn't look that great.
And that's, I mean, you're talking about the guy who people have been talking about, your MVP runner-up. Behind Mahomes in a lot of situations. Earlier in the season, before he got injured, you were MVP. And I don't think one game defines you, but that definitely wasn't a great game from Hurts. I think Miles Sanders had a heck of a day, 2 rushing touchdowns.
I mean, the Eagles' ground game completely dominated.
Hassan
it was all
Reddick
running.
went off.
Hassan Reddick is the MVP of that game. But yeah, the Eagles. I think the Eagles just they completely dominated the ground game. I mean, the yards per carry was bad, but like you said, they were not run committing. San Fran was probably run committing because they knew Philly didn't have to throw the ball, and their yards just kept dropping and everything. So,
especially late game, I think once Philly was up about 24-7,
they never threw the ball.
They just started running the ball because they're like, I'm going to run. They wanted to get the game over with. At that point, you're going to the Super Bowl. Let's keep our team healthy. Let's run the ball and get out of here. I mean, I think that's kind of was the mindset they kind of fell into late, and maybe I think that reflects a little bit on Hurts' throwing stats when you kind of just. Why would you throw it when you can just run the game out? Kenneth Gainwell had a good game too, 14 for 48. 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone had told me that the Eagles are going to run for 4 touchdowns on the Niners with that linebacking core, that D-line, I'd have been like, no chance. So that was impressive for sure. And like you said, maybe the Niners kind of give up hope. I don't know what version of the Niners defense we really got there.
Mm-hmm. But back to your Hassan Reddick comment. 2 sacks on the day. One of those was a strip sack. The one that I think it was the one that hurt or injured Brock Purdy.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
And then only 3 tackles on the day, but they were big ones.
His moments were huge moments for the
Yeah.
team, and he was going to work.
And back on, like I was saying, good field position. That fumble set the Eagles up in great field position. So.
Yeah. Honestly, I was kind of surprised Hassan Reddick wasn't a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, really. Yeah, I think he had, let me check his numbers here real quick, 16 sacks on the season, 5 forced fumbles, which I think led the league, and 3 pass deflections. Like, I just think he is a super underrated player.
Totally agree.
And even last week, I think he had a sack or two, too, against the Giants. He had 1.5 sacks last week against Daniel Jones. I mean, that's not the Niners' offensive line, but it's not shabby.
Yeah. No, Hassan Reddick's definitely a top defensive player in the NFL, and I don't think he gets nearly enough recognition that he deserves. And even if I don't think he should be Defensive Player of the Year, he definitely should be in the conversation. At least people should be putting his name out there more. But
Yeah.
I think that's kind of been Hassan Reddick's way of the NFL the entire time. I think he's always been a pretty dominant pass rusher.
Mm-hmm. Especially here lately. Okay. On to your guys' game.
Woo! That was stressful.
Yeah, it was. Closer we got to that game, last week I said I picked Cincinnati. Closer we got to that game, my mind just kept flipping back and forth. It's like, I don't know. All the narrative just points to Kansas City this week.
Yeah, Bengals definitely talked a big game before this one. They were very...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Was when we were talking on the show last Monday, I was like, Mahomes was hurt, Bengals. But then as it kept going, the amount of people who just, had no faith in the Chiefs, and then I was like, this is still Patrick Mahomes, it's like... People were expecting a blowout. I'm like, all the games have been 3 points.
Yeah, difference. People who thought this game was going to be a blowout, I didn't understand that at all. They're always close, competitive games.
I didn't understand the blowout thing.
I thought the Chiefs would win, like I said last week. I know you both were rocking with the Bengals as of last week. I don't know if you changed your mind on that.
Oh, yeah, my mind started flipping before the game. I was like, yeah.
I was surprised about kind of how poorly the Chiefs ran the ball in that game. I definitely thought Pacheco was going to have a bigger day than he did.
Receiving-wise, he played very well.
Great. That was one of his best receiving performances he's had. I mean, a lot of people have thought of McKinnon as our receiving back, and Pacheco definitely stepped up and said he was going to fill those shoes today. So
yeah,
he had a huge game, especially that one he had on the sideline. I mean, he had 3 guys on him and broke out of it somehow. I think he was even surprised that he kind of stood there for a second after they all fell off. He was like, wait a minute, and then he took it for an extra 10 yards, so that was pretty impressive.
If you were a Cincinnati Bengals fan, you have to be hoping they get an O-lineman.
Yeah, I think it's just like they have good O-linemen. They had the same thing that kind of happened to us when we lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. That they have this, have a good O-lineman, but they're all injured.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's like that's kind of how I felt even last night watching it as a Chiefs fan. I was sitting here and I'm like thinking, gosh, all of our receivers are not doing very good right now. I mean, besides MVS having a career day, obviously probably one of his best games. The Chiefs. We'll get back to that in a little bit, but. I mean, Juju's injured, Hardman's injured, Kadarius Toney's injured. I mean, I think those 3 guys are
Travis Kelce was even injured coming into this game.
Definitely. Kelce's playing through injury, and it's sitting there, and you're like, well, it's not that we need to draft a receiver per se, but, man, we really wish these guys would get healthy. And I think that's kind of the boat.
You need a route runner other than Kelce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, your O-line played really well, too. Good job keeping Patrick clean. Except late in the game, he was taking some shots, but I think those were on Mahomes more than the O-line. He's stepping up too far in the pocket.
I think definitely some of that stuff, too. Mahomes is have to hold the ball a little bit longer than he wants to when you got Sky Moore out there and
Marcus Kemp.
Marcus Kemp is your two receivers other than MVS. I mean, those guys are definitely going to have a hard time.
I don't even know the last time Marcus Kemp has seen playing time.
I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, to be honest, back in his rookie year.
Yeah, I remember him from his rookie year. He's definitely been a practice squad guy I don't think Andy Reid had any thoughts of that Marcus Kemp was going to be out on the field. So, I mean, and the worst part about it, too, is when you look at it that Kadarius Toney re-aggravated the same injury. It's been bothering him all year. McCole Hardman re-aggravated the same injury. I mean, those are not good when those lingering injuries, you take a hit and it's right back to where you were.
Well, I have the depth chart pulled up, and for the receivers, Juju's questionable, Mecole's questionable, Justin Watson's out, and then Justin Ross is on the IR, obviously.
That's another big one. Justin Watson, I mean, he's actually been a pretty stellar receiver for us this year. Kind of came out of nowhere. I know he was a special teamer for the Buccaneers. Came over here. He had an illness, so that's why he wasn't out there. I think hopefully he'll be okay for the Super Bowl.
So according to the depth chart on ESPN, the only healthy receivers are Marcus Kemp, Ty Freifogel. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
And then MVS and Amir Smith-Marset. That's it.
Wow.
I might be mistaken here, but didn't we sign?
And John Ross and Scott.
John Ross. I was about to say. I was like, John Ross.
Oh, I forgot about the John Ross signing.
I would have loved to see him out there last night. He personally probably doesn't know the offense. He's only been here for a couple of weeks, but.
Did you say something about Justin Ross earlier?
Yeah, we have Justin Ross. He's on the IR.
Did he get? He's on the IR. I was like,
yeah,
did
he got
elevated?
he got a season-ending injury during preseason.
That's right.
It was too dangerous for him to play, so they just
Yeah, they shut him down for the year. And I think, he was a big-time receiver for
Clemson.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be super good.
If he would have stayed healthy, he definitely probably. A lot of people thought
probably like a
first. A lot of people,
three, first to third round draft pick. Yeah.
If he would have never gotten injured and played a completely healthy career, he would have been probably put up way more numbers and definitely I think would have been a first rounder to second rounder. It was one of those guys at the end of the draft went undrafted. I know there's a ton of teams reaching out to him. A lot of people wanted to sign him, so feels good when he picked Kansas City to come to. Hopefully he'll get healthy for next year.
You're talking about your receiver and lack of them. One of them stepped up big last night. Sky Moore with a huge punt return at the end of the.
And when I was watching that, I was like, why would they put Sky Moore back there? Because if you remember the Colts game.
My gosh. Well, more than the Colts game. He did it. He's done it 3 muff punts this year.
Yeah.
When I hear Sky Moore's name back there, I'm sitting there thinking, no, why? What are we doing?
Hold on to the ball.
I'm sitting there sweating bullets. Yeah, I was definitely nervous. But
I think Tony Romo said it on the broadcast. He goes, this shows a lot about Andy Reid's confidence in him to put him in this moment. That was probably the biggest sports moment of his life. And
I can't remember, what was the one? Was it Sky Moore or was it Pacheco on the other return? That was also a really good return. I think it was Sky Moore and it got called back for a holding.
It was Sky Moore.
Yeah, so he really had 2 good returns when you think about it. So I was impressed. And I think that's what Dave Tope, our special teams coach, has said all year about, yes, he's had this muffing problem, but we feel like when he has the ball in his hands, his vision to just run downhill.
He sees holes, but he's got to catch the ball first.
Yeah, there's 2 parts of this thing. You got to be able to catch the ball, and that's almost the bigger part. Earlier in the season, we were talking about Justin Watson earlier. Justin Watson was our returner, and all he did was sit there and fair catch it.
Yeah, he
couldn't return, but he could catch the ball, and you'll take that over a good return. So I'm really happy to see the Sky Moore put it together. Hopefully, that's something we can utilize in the Super Bowl.
Build off of, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I said we get back to another receiver. Had a big game. MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I cannot believe the game he had.
I couldn't either.
6 for 116 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
And he had to step up. There was literally, he was the top receiver on our team that almost the entire second half. He stepped up and did great. He looked awesome. The touchdown pass by Mahomes threaded it right through the needle, sitting on his butt, sat there and caught it, hit right in the chest.
Yeah, and what I've been saying all season was you never really saw the connection between Mahomes and MVS. Really, every deep ball was overthrown or the route was, they just never really connected. But this game, it was finally a game.
When it mattered most.
Yeah, and even last week, go back to the Jacksonville game. He had that awesome touchdown in the back of the end zone. That was a huge play, too, in a close game last week. So he's definitely stepped up in the playoffs. So it's exciting to see that. And just like the Sky Moore thing, hopefully we can build off that, too.
And I don't think Green Bay ever did what you guys did last night. You guys used him a lot out of the slot.
Yeah.
And I think Green Bay always primarily used him as a
out wide.
Out wide X receiver.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just Andy Reid's mind working things. Because MVS, it really isn't that good of a route runner.
No.
But I guess the mismatch they saw last night and Cincinnati never adjusted to it. Kansas City only scored 23 points, but they looked sharp. They only had 1 turnover, which was the fluke Pat Mahomes.
I don't even know what happened there.
I have no idea either. That fumble, I watched that live. I was like, what the heck just happened?
I was talking to my buddy after the game, and I was sitting there, I was like, I got to say, so if you go just the play before that, I think that was the least stressed I'd been the whole game. We're up 20-13. We got the ball at midfield. Let's go get a field goal. Anything. We're going to go up by double digits here. This is game-changing. Just put it together here, and then that happens, and you're just like, are you kidding me? And it was a fluke play. Definitely, I think Mahomes wasn't too happy about that one.
Yeah, building off that Sky Moore punt, I don't how many plays did you guys run after that before you got in the field goal range?
3 or 4.
Okay. So everybody wants to bring up that Joseph Asai hit out of bounds,
Yeah.
and I feel terrible for the kid.
Oh, I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there watching the game, and I felt so bad for him. He's sitting on the bench,
Bawling his eyes out.
and there's nobody sitting there. No teammate went over to, like, you just didn't see, like, the pickup. Like,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, after the game, you got the guy walking down the tunnel yelling and complaining about his player hitting the quarterback out of bounds. I mean, that's just not very good.
Yeah. But my
Sportsmanship or
thing is,
teammanship,
it's like,
really.
even if he doesn't commit that penalty, the game's almost still essentially over. You have one of the best deep ball kickers in
Yeah.
the league in Butker. You're, at that point, without the penalty, would have been a 60-yard field goal with a whole nother play to run, too.
Yeah, you never know what Andy Reid would have drawn up. He
Yeah.
probably had something to get us quick out of bounds, even give us 4-5, make it a 55-er.
I don't think you can blame Joseph Fasai for that loss. You had,
I think they're looking for the scapegoat.
yeah, I know. You had two Joe Burrow turnovers. You had a bunch of penalties that were just awful, like terrible penalties, crunch time penalties,
Yeah.
and just I don't know. I don't blame Joseph Fasai at all for that loss. They lost
No.
as a team.
And he was having a heck of a game up until that point. I mean, they were just talking about him about the play before. I think he had a good tackle.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
Did
he
you
he did more than just
Did you
that.
see the video after when they were walking in the back in their locker room?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was talking about. The
Oh,
other guy in the
yeah.
tunnel
Oh, yeah,
was
yeah.
upset verbally with
No,
Joseph.
that was yeah. After the game though, I don't remember what player it was, but they were all defending him,
That's good.
kind of. But yeah, that felt bad for him.
All right, well, let's move on to a preview. We have about 18 minutes here left. Philly and Kansas City, the final stage.
Kelsey Bowl.
Love
Chelsea Bowl, yeah. Two of the most, I think, likable personalities in all of football, and
Yes.
Jason and Travis.
Yeah.
Well, did you hear what Nick Wright said yesterday about top 3 quarterbacks?
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
I did not see this
Well, he
comment.
said Patrick Mahomes is obviously number 1. Then he said Joe Burrow's 2, and the third best quarterback is Patrick Mahomes on 1 foot. So
That's funny.
I mean, you saw how healthy. I feel like he got pretty good. I mean, I know he got tweaked up late in the game. He took a hit, and he was back to kind of his gimpy, limping self. But, I mean, the first half, he didn't really look too horrible. I mean, there's definitely some planting issues. But that was in 1 week. I think you give him 2 more weeks of rest. I don't think he totally re-aggravated it. Hopefully too bad last night. Hopefully we can see almost a healthy Mahomes come game time.
I am terrified of Philly's pass rush.
Yeah.
That is absolutely ridiculously deep. I don't know if Josh Sweat is. I know he got hurt late season, but I don't know if.
Did he play
he's-
last week or not?
I don't-
Or this week?
I'm trying to find out. But I mean, even if he doesn't play, Brandon Graham, Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh. You can just go
You
on
said
and
Jordan Davis.
Well, he's out. He
is.
he's on IR.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he Josh Sweat is playing. So there's just another one. It's scary. But then again, contradictory to that, you have Pat Mahomes on the other side. It's just honestly, it might come down to your guys' receiving core and if anybody's healthy, too.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me if Hardman's not healthy in time. He was a game time decision for this game, and I was almost surprised that he even played.
I wouldn't be surprised if they play through injury unless he just absolutely can't go.
Yeah, I think Kadarius Toney should probably be back. I think he's just got bad hamstrings. I'm not 1,000% sure what the injury was. It was kind of an awkward one. If you guys saw the tackle, he kind of fell down, kind of wonky.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be okay. But, I mean, yeah, our receivers has got to get healthy. That's the bottom line. And, like, Juju, I mean, I visibly saw Hardman get injured. I visibly saw Toney get injured. I don't know what happened to Juju.
I don't know.
He just was out there 1 minute and he wasn't the next. I don't know exactly what happened.
hopefully that's a good sign.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. Talking about the game though, I don't know if I'm willing to give a prediction yet, just because there's so many
You have 2 weeks.
variables.
Yeah.
on who cannot
There's
play.
a lot of variables.
But I will say a big factor I think that's probably going to come down to this is the Chiefs had played these closer games where they've been actually had to grind it. I think the Eagles have coasted so much that honestly could hurt them, where they haven't really fought for a win. They won 38-7 and then 31-7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they
So-
definitely had a easier route.
So you don't know how they're going to perform, or like any of the new guys who have never been there, because I know some of them have been there from the past Super Bowl, but you don't have no clue how Hurts will be if it comes down to a game-winning drive or something like that.
I feel like if Hurts plays like he did in the game against the Niners and Mahomes played how he played against the Bengals, I think the Chiefs will probably take care of business. I think if you want to break it out of quarterback play, but like you said, if the Eagles pass rush is getting after Mahomes and Mahomes still isn't 100% mobile, that's definitely going to play to the Eagles.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to obviously the pass rush. I don't know how Kansas City is going to match up with Philly's offensive line. We'll see. Chris Jones has not carried your pass rush, but has been a big influence on getting other pressures.
Frank Clark in the playoffs, man.
Yes, Frank Clark's played very well, but I think a lot of that comes off of Chris Jones' ability to create pressure on
definitely.
the interior. It allows one-on-one matchups with. But then Philly just has two of the best offensive tackles in the league, and
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, you got to realize, I think we're second in the NFL this year in sacks, which surprised a ton of people, considering last year they had no pass rush.
Yeah.
They knew the problem. They addressed it. But I feel like you're talking about these two great tackles they do have. They also have a great center. I mean, they have a great offensive line, Philadelphia does. You could say the same thing about the Chiefs. We have at least three great interior players. I think Orlando Brown took a step back this year, but he's still Orlando Brown.
Trey Smith got hurt too, didn't he?
Trey Smith got banged up. I don't think he
came back.
He came back. So
Okay. Well, I saw Wiley was playing guard, and I didn't.
Yeah, I think there was a while he was doing that.
Okay.
Hopefully Trey Smith can get healthy. I think the Chiefs have a good O-line. I think this goes both ways. I'll be curious to see which team's pass rush can step up regardless of the guys you got across from you. And
I think that decides the game.
I think that'll be a huge factor in this game. Especially if Mahomes is not mobile. If Mahomes can't evade the pass rush and get out of the pocket and move around a little bit, make some big scrambling plays, it's going to be a tough one.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. It will definitely be interesting because, I mean, like I said, back to the receiver situation, Philly's secondary is probably the most talented in the league, and I don't know how Kansas City's receivers would match up with that if they don't have a Juju, if they don't have a McCole Hardman, if they don't have a who was the other one that you said was
Kadarius Toney.
Yeah, Toney.
Yeah, I mean they got to get healthy. I thought it was funny earlier in the game. Romo was talking about how he goes, it's really lucky for the Chiefs that Hardman's back this week because when Kadarius Toney went down, he's like, these are their motion guys, these are their jet sweep kind of guys, these quick, elusive players they have in Hardman and in Toney. So at least when one goes down, you got the other, and then not even a quarter later, you got Hardman going down too, and you're just sitting there like, man, what are the odds of that? I mean, hopefully they both can get healthy. Hopefully the defense can get healthy too. I mean, L'Jarius Sneed's by far and away our best corner on our team.
Went down with a concussion.
So I don't know if he'll be ready to go in 2 weeks. We'll see how severe that is. And then also Willie Gay went down with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't look too good either. So those guys got to try to get healthy too.
Yeah. So as of now, things can change in 2 weeks. Which way are you guys leaning?
I mean, go ahead, Michael.
Man, I think I'm honestly basing off what I said. I just don't know if they're going to be prepared, but I just don't know if they've really fought enough to where if it comes down to it, they're going to be able to pull it out. And I think the Chiefs can.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but this Philadelphia team really reminds me of the 2015 Carolina Panthers. A lot. You have the mobile quarterback in Jalen Hurts and Cam.
Yeah.
You have the star-studded defense that absolutely dominated everybody they played.
Yep.
And the talented O-line, and then you have the team coming out of the AFC that nobody's talking about. And unless you live in Missouri, obviously, everybody's going to talk about Kansas City. But I feel like Kansas City has just been massive underdogs this year.
Yeah.
And they're a 1 seed, and they've only lost 3 games all season.
Going into the season, there was people predicting the Chiefs to come in third in the AFC West.
I didn't understand that, but
thought the Chiefs. A lot of people thought they'd miss the playoffs.
Yeah, there was some of that too. I mean, they thought we'd lose Tyreek Hill and we'd forget how to play offense. I think they forgot we had Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. And when you got Andy Reid, he's going to draw up people to get open. So,
yeah.
The problem is that Eagles team has 0 weak spots. I mean, 0. It's kind
and they had a weak spot and they addressed it. They had a run problem. They had a hard time stopping the runs. What do? You go sign Pro Bowler Linval Joseph and Pro Bowler Ndamukong Suh just sitting there at home. So, and those both guys have been impactful for them as well.
For minimum contracts too,
yeah,
sure.
Definitely. Come on, join
Smart
us.
move.
Let's go win a Super Bowl.
So hey, let's just come on. You want another ring?
Exactly.
Yeah, but so where are you leaning?
Kind of like Michael said, I think close game favors us. They've had a lot of blowouts, a lot of easy wins, a lot of coasting games. So this is going to be a close competitive game. It's going to be fun to see them in this kind of situation. I know they kind of had this against some of their games against Dallas. Of course, in both of those games, Dallas didn't have their quarterback. The other, Philadelphia, didn't have their quarterback. And I think those were their closest games of the year. I think if the Chiefs can get healthy, I think the Chiefs. I'd go Chiefs in this game. I mean, still
Based off
2
experience.
weeks out, but I mean, if Hardman doesn't play, Tony doesn't play, Juju doesn't play, if everyone who's injured right now doesn't play, I don't think we're going to win. No, we got to get healthy.
But I think it's something to say is the Eagles 4 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, that's what helps their passing game. But the Chiefs don't have like a pushover rush defense.
No, I mean, I was really surprised the job we did on Joe Mixon.
Well, actually, some point in the season, the middle of the season, they had the number 1 ranked rush defense.
Yeah, it was pretty early on. Yeah.
And I'm looking now. If we're going strictly off numbers, they're not 10, but they're like 8, 9 for the top 10 rush defenses. So.
Yeah, Kansas City's run defense has been very underrated this year, and that's in large part due to Frank Clark and Chris Jones, two of the best run defending defensive linemen.
Nick Bolton and Willie Gay can make a tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you look at the Bengals rushing stats, too, from that game, it looks better than it was because you had Joe Burrow's 4 carries for 30 yards, and I think...
What were their final numbers? I don't even know.
So they finished with 17 carries for 71 yards, which 4.2 yards per carry isn't bad, but then you got Joe Burrow who had 4 for 30, so that's going to skew your average a little bit. Of course, 2 of those runs was a really smart play design by the offensive coordinator. They spread the Chiefs out. They went 5 wide. They got it open, and he just ran right up the middle for 15 yards, just a really easy scamper.
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm leaning more Philadelphia, and that's in large part due to Kansas City's injury problem right now. That things will change in 2 weeks, I know that, but this Philadelphia roster, like you said, just has no holes, and I don't see. Andy Reid's probably the best coach in the league right now, but it's going to be a big test on Andy Reid's coaching abilities.
Yeah, especially if he has to go in there with these receivers. But I think it's Andy Reid's time to get his get back.
Well, I'm going to pick the Chiefs or the Eagles, and you pick the Chiefs. So like last week, the Chiefs will win.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds good to me.
So I'll pick the Eagles.
All right, well, we are at the end of our show right now. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week at the same time at 9 a.m. This has been the first quarter.